What's up, legends? Welcome back to NCR. Today we're doing something different, nothing to do with racing. We are servicing the NCR daily. So this is my 2021 Toyota Crown GWS224 G-Exec. Man, what a mouthful. If you want to know lots about these cars, I will link to a Facebook group in the description, a little Facebook group that we run specific to the S220 series Crown, so come on over and learn about that. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the car, but the more important thing is that we're going to jump into servicing the car. Now, it won't be an exhaustive explanation about how you change oil. It'll be what are the bolt sizes, what are the capacities, do they match up with the capacity guide, and I'll link that as well. I have not serviced this car before. I bought it around about 30,000 Ks, it's now at 45, so it's due. I'm not expecting to find anything crazy being a Toyota, and I was able to get all my fluids and supplies from Toyota. I will put a photo or a link up or something for those as well. But we're just going to go through it. So we're going to do air filter, cabin filter, hybrid battery filter if we get a chance, transmission fluid, and probably diff fluid. The brake fluid is good. I've already checked it with a tester. So it'll just be what do we find as we go. Any questions that you've got about the process that I haven't covered in the video, feel free to drop them in the comments. As I mentioned, under the pump today, lots on elsewhere. So we're going to speed run some of this, no fancy editing, not exhaustive in the sense of, every little tiny bit of information. So if you've got a question, just ask. But otherwise, without further ado, let's hook into it. We're going to start up here with the car, bit of an overview, then we'll get into the stuff that we can do while it's on the ground, so air filters and all that sort of stuff. So let's go. So a very quick overview for those of you who don't know what a Crown is. This is Toyota's large four-door luxury sedan, and it is, it's a full-size car. So I use this as my school run car, and you can see interior is quite nice. I will jump in there and we'll take a close look at that in a minute. The G-Exec is distinguished from the fact that it has all the rear luxury appointments. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just put that in there. So power reclining rear seats, full climate control, and if you can just see, there's a powered rear shade up the back there, all that kind of stuff. So it is a fairly nicely appointed car. The V6 hybrid cranks out, I think, 264 kilowatts is the official specification, and an unknown amount of torque. And the fuel economy is quite good. I've had this thing down to 5.8, but normally I see about 6.2 or something per 100 Ks, which is great for a large sedan. A reasonable size boot, nothing special. I've got some bits and pieces in there getting ready for service, and a dash mat from AliExpress that didn't actually quite fit right because it was for the non-hybrid version. So what else can I tell you about this car? It is effectively a Lexus LS500h, so it shares the same drivetrain. It is an 8GR-FXS, so a 3.5 litre Toyota V6 and a hybrid battery pack, lithium ion. So it's a great thing. I love it. This is not the same transmission that you will find in hybrid Camrys. They use a standard CVT, and this guy uses a CVT paired with a 4-speed planetary gear set on the back. If I can find it, I'll link to the transmission specifics and the model number below. But any other questions you've got about the car itself, just ask. I'll jump into the interior and give you a very quick look at that before we get into the servicing. Okay, well, here's our interior. So, as you'd expect from a Toyota, luxury-esque car, it's a pretty nice place to be with all leather everywhere and wood grain and all that kind of stuff. Let me just jump in. Now, the big thing with the facelifted model Crown, let me come up, is you get this big central screen and, in my opinion, a much nicer center stack. Let me just turn it on. Oh, yeah. So telescopic steering and memory seats and all that. Now, I've already got my phone plugged in. I just pop it down there with a cable because these only come with hardwired Android Auto and CarPlay. Oh, let me just pause my podcast. Now you can see, it's a nice big display. You can switch the sides between, where the information comes up. You've got all of your heating and ventilation controls up here if you want, but also hard buttons down here. And yes, for those of you who care, there is still the very famous swinging vents Crown option, which will make the vents go back and forth. But that is the big thing with the facelifted Series 2, is this much nicer center stack. The other thing, I'm not sure if I can show you while the car is off. I can. So if you see in there, In the facelift, the executive model also gets the full Sports Plus tuning mode, which is, just tighter suspension and sharper throttle response and more aggressive shifts and all that sort of stuff. It does make a difference, and I quite like it. So ambient lighting all throughout. The rest of it is all pretty standard, Toyota fare. It's a lovely place to be. You got a little compartment down here where I keep my keys and bits and pieces. Again, hard to see. And then what do we got? We've got our powered rear shade button, reclining seat button for the back, drive modes, etc, etc. So very quick overview. I'll jump in the back and show you what they're working with back there. But any questions, just ask. All right, so we're in the back now. This is the main reason I bought this car, and you'll have to excuse the plastics, I've just left them on. So the rear occupants, if you can see that, get a full control center of their own. So audio, climate control, you might be able to hear this. So the seats are reclinable. There's a nice big compartment in here. You might not be able to see that, but I made this insert and 3D printed that for the kids, and drink bottles and tissue holders and all the rest of it. And then just on the side of the passenger seat are a couple of buttons here that allow you to adjust this seat if you need to for more leg room. There's some lovely grab handles, and then of course there is a powered rear blind. Can you see that? So of course, naturally the kids love that, and that thing is always going up and down, but it does make a difference on a hot sunny day. The other one is these guys, so not powered, if you can see that, built into the doors. So the rear is really the biggest difference between the G-Exec and the RS Advance, which is the sport model. So that was the reason I bought it. I wanted all the rear comforts for the kids for the daily drive. You can option an RS Advance with all of the rear powered settings. Let me just try and get out. But the reality is, I don't think I've ever seen one at auction that had it. So the rear setup is generally unique to the G-Exec. In the front, the RS Advance and the G-Exec are very similar. So there's not really a lot of difference. One thing I did notice is that you do not get power height adjustment on the passenger seat, which is weird, and I find that it sits a little high, but it is what it is. Nice crown floor mats, and but yeah, leather everywhere. Anything that you guys want to know, just let me know. Otherwise, it's probably time to crack on with the service, so let's get into it. Okay, straight into the engine bay. Now you guys might do it differently. I generally start with the air filter, which is hiding under here, and I'll show you how to remove that in a second. But this is what you're working with. So a big Toyota V6 under a plastic cover. It looks pretty hideous under there. Can we get that off easily? Come on. There we go. So bit of a mess, but that's pretty much what you expect of modern engines these days. So the only other thing you really need to be mindful of here is what's happening with your coolant. So you've got two coolant systems. You've got your normal engine coolant on one side, and it looks fine, nice and pink, Toyota long life coolant. Really stick with that, that's my recommendation. And then you've got a separate cooling system in here, which is the hybrid battery system. Now we're not touching either of those today because Toyota long life coolant is generally good for it's 10 years and 150,000 Ks. I don't usually leave it that long, but we're certainly not anywhere near due for that just yet. So when it comes time for me to do that service, I'll include that in the video. So for now, I'm going to put the camera down. We'll crack the air filter out. You can take a look. I've got a reusable Tom's, rewashable rather, Tom's air filter in there. I can link a part in the description if you guys are interested in that. I generally find that a washable one gives better value over the life of the vehicle. Depends on the filtration level. So let's take a look at it. I've been washing it, every 3,000 or 4,000 Ks anyway, but we'll take a look and we'll make sure that the intake tract is nice and clean. But otherwise, yep, it should be pretty straightforward. Let's get that done now. So there it is, not that hard to get the air filter out. This is the Tom's washable filter, and as you can see, it's actually not that dirty. There's a bit of, seeds and leaves and a few little tiny bits and pieces there. So we'll go and clean that out thoroughly, and then it just goes back in the tray and slots back in. I'm also just gonna have a look inside with an inspection light and just make sure that we're actually getting the filtration that we want from this thing, because I'm always a bit dubious about these washable filters. I've been monitoring this one already, so it looks okay, but no harm in taking a second look. So we'll get that done now. Alrighty, now while we're waiting for our air filter to dry, so I've blown it out with compressed air, and then I like to give it a good clean with warm soapy water. It looked fine. I also like to occasionally just pop the MAF sensor out and give that a quick clean with some CRC. So a couple of screws here, it's just a standard Phillips head, one connector, and then we'll just give the sensor on that just a very gentle clean with CRC. Don't go crazy, but no harm in keeping the dust build up off your MAF sensor. Okay, so that's what you're working with, called a hot wire sensor. And we just want to give anything we can see electrical. So this little resistor here, a clean, and then just a very gentle clean over with some CRC. Nothing crazy. When you put it back in, make sure it goes the right way. There's a little arrow there. In all honesty, looking at the design of this, again, I said I haven't serviced these cars before. This is quite a different design than I'm used to seeing on old Nissans. So see, air is going through here and then going up inside the sensor. So it might not be possible for us to actually clean the sensor with CRC. I've just given it a good soak and then let it drain out. CRC will evaporate by itself, so don't stress about that. But yeah, just giving it some CRC, a bit of a wipe down, being very careful with anything you see, and then making sure that the orientation is correct when you put it back in. All right, so that's it for here. I'm gonna leave this open for the moment while we're waiting for our air filter to dry. So we'll come back to this when it's time to do oil and all that sort of stuff and clean it up. For now, let's go and take a look at the cabin filter. Okay, now hopefully this follows the same process as every other Toyota I've worked on. So pop the glove box down, push in gently on the sides just to get the glove box to clear the internal tabs. There we go, that's one, that's two. There's a little arm just here. So you just rotate that out, that'll disconnect that. This should all come out now, and it does. Now up inside here, a couple little tabs, no tools required. There's our cover for our cabin filter. It's clearly been changed before. I can see this sticker. That tells me it's been serviced once before, but who knows what we'll find. Any screws, nothing in there. There's that one come out. Okay. So pinch the tabs on this one. So we're just pinching these tabs and rotating out. Again, this has a direction that shows you which way it goes. We'll try and get our tray out. Now, don't know when this was last done, so not sure what we'll find in here. What do we got? Yeah, all right, so this actually looks like most of the stuff from my house, these leaves and debris. Clearly not a standard filter. Now, when I spoke to Toyota about this, they couldn't get me a filter in the time that I had available to get this service done, so I'll have to get this one replaced later. For now, we're just gonna clean it thoroughly and pop it back in. I think this was something ridiculous, like 170 bucks. So we'll look for some alternatives or find some better pricing. Normally my local deal is pretty good, but on this thing, not so much. So anyway, there it is. I'll take it out, clean it, and we'll pop it back in and continue on. Okay, back again. So all back together. I did spend a bit of time cleaning this right out, even though we are going to replace it. It was pretty filthy, so I've given it a good blowout, and as you can see, it's a lot nicer. Installation is the reverse of removal, so just paying note to these. So this is up, so that's a direction, flow comes that way. The filter also has it, I can't show you now, but it's on the side of the filter. In this one, there are a couple of little locating, what would you call them? They're just little tabs that stick up in here inside the filter to stop it moving around. So be mindful of those, and then just be mindful of these little guys here. Don't break those off. So now we will pop him back in. So get the glove box lined up, get your little rod clipped back on, and then just one firm and you're good to go. All right, we'll jump in the back now and we'll take a look at the hybrid battery setup. And so, we'll jump in the back now and we'll take a look at the hybrid battery filter setup and see what we can find. Okay, so here's what I've found. There is indeed a filter here. Now, as I understand it, there might also be a filter just in front of the fan unit itself in the boot, and if I get a chance and some time, I'll take a look at that. But at the very least, there is a filter here. So it is just a basic trim removal process. I've just got a little trim removal tool here. Take your time. It looks like it wants to come away from the seat side first. So from here on this side first, and then leave it out, because the tabs on the door side, you can see they leave it in. So probably want to pull it up like that and then out that way. So good news, I went that way and didn't break anything, but I hate, you know, trim removal processes. I am always a bit stressed that I'm going to break a plastic clip. So I'll take these filters out, give them a bit of a clean. I'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I'm on the other side now, and I thought I'd just give you a quick look at this. These filters look to be replaceable, so they're quite flexible. They're nothing special, and just with the design of the tabs on them, they're not that strong. So they really just sit. Which way have I got this? Around the other, no, that way. They just sit in there on the prongs. So again, excuse me, trying to do this one-handed, awkwardly. Get them all on the tabs, and then after having a bit more of a look at this, you don't actually need to remove the door seal to get these out. You just basically reach in here, pull that out, and then the whole thing will come out. So hopefully I'll be able to just do this nice and easy with one hand. So I get the tabs in. No, it looks like to get them back in, you do just want a little bit of clearance from the door seal. I'll just pull him up. There we go. Get those tabs locked in under there, and then snap the whole thing into place. That looks better. And then just push your door seal rather, back in. I'm going to take a quick look in the boot and see if there is another filter for the blower motor, and I'll either cut to that depending on what I find, or from here we will pop the car up on the hoist and then start doing fluids. Okay, well I couldn't help myself, so I've gone and take a look in the back. Now I can see no obvious filters. So here's our hybrid battery pack. You can see up in there is our ducting from our intakes in the cabin. So I believe that they are filtered just in the cabin. I will go and check at my Yamaha for the parts listing for this car to see if there is any kind of filter in there. I've seen sock style filters that are cleanable, but in those cases on like IS300s and those sorts of things, obviously the hybrid ones, there's a blower motor that sits about here and a big pipe that comes off it, if you've seen that on YouTube, and that's the filter that gets clogged. So looks like we might not have one. I will go and check an Yamaha, as I said. For now, we're going to call that done for the hybrid battery filter, and of course I'll put the boot back together. From here, let's put the car up on the hoist and get into the fluids. Okay, before we go all the way to the top on the hoist and start draining fluids, I've just popped it up to a comfortable height to take the wheels off. I will rotate the tyres. Make sure that you check if your tyres are directional. If they are, you'll have to keep them on the same side. If they aren't, you can swap them side to side. So I've just popped them off, ready for that. But it also gives us a chance to take a look at the brakes and the suspension. So you can see there's quite a meaty caliper on this. All we're really looking for at the moment is there enough pad in there, and there's heaps. And then just a quick general look at the suspension, making sure all the boots are in good condition, nothing's torn, there's no obvious signs of leaks. You can see it is a double A-arm setup, so I'm not super familiar with this setup, but you know, it's Toyota stuff, so hopefully it's pretty reliable. It doesn't look like there's much adjustment, so they don't look adjustable. What else have we got? You can see the electronic controller on the shock. Let's just jump under here. What have we got on the knuckle? Doesn't look highly adjustable, to be honest, but I'm sure there's some adjustment in there, certainly with toe, but I'm just having a look at camber more importantly. So I am no suspension expert, so if you can see something I can't in terms of how camber is adjusted on these, then by all means let me know. But otherwise it all looks pretty straightforward. Let's have a look at the back. Back's pretty similar, nothing crazy, nothing special with the rear brakes. Plenty of pad in there, thank you. And now I have heard that there is a little bit of issue with tyre wear on these cars, and certainly when mine was aligned, it ended up with about -1 or 1.5 camber, which is quite a lot for a street car. And when I have a look, that one's not adjustable. Is that guy adjustable? There are some marks on that one which imply it might be adjustable. Let's have a look. Hard to tell. There are some dots on the nut, but I can't tell if it's an eccentric bolt or not. What do we got here? So we've got some toe adjustment. That's pretty straightforward. But in terms of camber, interesting. So if you guys know how camber is adjusted on these things, or even if it can be, let me know. Traction rod. But yeah, there's not not really much going on in the way of obvious adjustment, but again, this is the most modern car I've owned, and there could be something obvious staring me in the face. The other thing is that these wheel nuts were incredibly tight, so when you're swapping your wheels around, don't go crazy. I had to use an impact gun to get them off, so the tyre shop that fitted the tyres went a bit hard, so I'll make sure that that's sorted. But what else? Man, that is a very thick sway bar. I imagine it's hollow, but nice and big. Nothing else exciting to report under here, so we'll continue going up on the hoist and then we'll start draining our fluids. Under the car now, a very quick overview before we hook in. You can see these little inspection covers are labelled. So that one says oil GR, oil drain, and filter AR. And I think the AR is the 2-litre turbo 4-cylinder. So I'm going to pop all those off anyway and have a look. Looks like this guy here is inspection cover of some kind as well. What's that say? It says filter. So we'll take that off and have a look at that one as well. Moving back, nothing special. Automatic, twin exhaust, decent exhaust actually for a factory. And then back to our diff. So what's the diff? The diff is a 2PK. So standard drain hole, and then up on the side, standard fill hole, so nothing special. Actually, good question. What have we got here? That looks like the drain. That looks like the check bolt. So normally you fill these at a certain temperature up to a certain point, and then when it's correct, fluid will drain out of that hole. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to do a basic drain, measure the volume of fluid that comes out of it, and then put that same volume of fluid in it. So I'm not expecting this even needs a service. I'm just doing that for my own peace of mind. Is that one the drain hole? Maybe that's him there. Got a crush washer on it. That's generally a good sign. So I'll start removing some bits and pieces, and then we'll press on. All right, so as expected, not all of these holes are needed. So this guy here on the driver's side is actually our oil drain for the GR engine. This one said filter, but there's nothing there. That's just sump. That's just sump as well. So these must be either for the 2.5 litre hybrid. That one specifically said AR on it, so I think that one's for the 4-cylinder turbo. And then up the front here is our oil filter housing. It uses a standard screw-on filter housing. So I've got one here. It appears to be a 65mm. So if you need one of those, the Ryco part number 0105 on that one, 65mm is the one that you're after. So I'm going to drain some oil, crack the oil filter housing, make sure that the filter that we have, which is here, there's a part number. Hopefully that one's correct, so I'll know once I get it out. So we'll get this done and then we'll move on. Now I forgot to add, before I crack this bolt, it is just a generic 14mm. I have also got a couple of replacement washers. I like to replace them, at least I know where they're up to. You don't have to do them every service, but at least do them the first time you service the car and then you know they're fresh. Alrighty, we're moving to the diff now. First thing you want to do is always crack the fill plug first to make sure you can actually put some fluid in it, and then crack the drain plug. The spec sheet says something like, I think it's like 1.3 or 1.4 litres. I've got a clean new bucket with some volume labels on the side, so I'm going to drain it into that just to make sure. I've got 2 litres. I've never seen one of these take more than about that, so I think we'll be okay. What you'll need is this piece here. Can you guys see that? So it is an Allen key to metric adapter. So these things are known for stripping. I got this as part of, I think, my transmission kit for the Prado from K-On, and it slots in there nicely, and then it gives you a 24mm socket access onto that. So you do not want to be going at these things with Allen keys more than once or twice. This is a much better tool. So if you're having trouble with these, I think in the end I actually sent the Toyota Prado to Toyota. They cold chiseled one out from the front diff, which is notoriously bad. Then I got this tool. I've never had a problem since. So I'm going to crack all these now, drain some fluid, and then we'll go from there. All right. All cracked, no issues. So now we're going to just loosen off our fill plug just to allow the air into the diff. There he is. Pop him out of the way. And we'll try not to make a mess here. Bugger, we did Did spill some on the exhaust, so no doubt I'll smell that when I start the car later, but we'll do our best to clean it off in a sec. So diff fluid is looking, yeah, pretty good. No complaints there. Don't imagine this car's had too hard a life. So we'll wait for that to drain, then we'll clean it up and we'll put some fluid back in there. I do have replaceable crush washers for both the drain and fill plugs. I suggest you get some. Just on the sump plug up the front too, I'll show you when I get back there. It is actually a nylon washer for that one. So they are 100% disposable, single use. So I did say about potentially reusing them. On the Prado, they're metal. So on this, absolutely replace the washer every time you do an oil change. So we'll let this drain and then we'll go from there. All right, so that's drained enough now. You can see I've got a fresh washer here, fresh crush washer, and I've cleaned the drain plug. It was pretty good anyway, and I've cleaned up the diff fluid that we've got on the exhaust just with a bit of brake cleaner. So we're just gonna stop that weeping and then jam our drain plug back in the hole. We'll get that torqued up in a minute, and then we'll start putting some fluid in. So just 1 second, I'll show you what I've got. So we're using Toyota differential gear oil LX. Again, I'm going to put all this in the description. This is what was spec for the car. Now, having a look at the bucket, hard for you guys to see, but there is about, I think the spec called for maybe 1.3 to 1.4 litres, and based on what's in the bucket, I think that's about right. So I've got myself a little Tom Thumb. I hate these things. So I'm going to put some clean fluid in this just to flush out anything that was in there prior. I'm pretty sure it was diff fluid anyway, but might have been gearbox fluid actually from the 8.6. But we'll flush this out with some clean fluid and then we'll get pumping and we'll fill this diff up and we'll call that done. All right, job's done. So as expected, less than 1.5 litres. So I'll give this a bit of a clean up and then we'll move to the front of the car. Okay, back to the front now. Now, in case you guys are skipping around, or in case I've done this out of order, I just wanted to clarify something. The washer on the sump plug is actually a nylon guy. So that means it is single use. So I think I said earlier about being able to reuse them, and on my, my Prado you can because they're metal, but on these they are single use. So make sure you replace that. Go ahead and pop him in. And then we will get our filter housing draining. Now you don't need to go crazy tight on these. This one actually has a yellow mark on here and yours probably should too. Just go back to where the yellow mark is. If you think it's a bit loose on the yellow mark, you can go a touch tighter, but you don't need to go a full rotation. Don't go crazy. So, as per previously, our filter housing is a 65mm. So I'm just going to move some stuff and we'll hope for the best. It looks like this one's going to leak and make a mess, but we'll try our best. We're at an awkward angle here, but let's see how we go. I'm just going to check it quickly. Just remembered my Prado has a couple of metal tabs that hold it on. I can feel something up there. So I'm just going to check that quickly. Okay, so yes, there is. Just going to gently work that out. There we go. So there is an oil filter housing retaining clip. So it's pretty common on Toyotas. I've just gently worked this guy out with a flat bladed screwdriver. Basically what this does is stops the oil filter housing rotating around past this stop. So that needs to come out for removal. Kind of on an awkward angle for this, but just so you guys can see. All right, just about there. Turning by hand now, yep. Now the real question is, how much oil is going to come out? And there we go. So just get it to a point where it'll drain that out. Now while that's draining, you can check your other oil filter, make sure it's got all the bits and pieces that you need. And make sure that we replace the oil filter housing, seal, as well as the filter itself. So here's our little filter. Now sometimes in these you'll get a little drain bung as well, but given that this one's sideways, you don't get a drain bung, but on the Prado, faces down, you get a drain bung. It clips up inside the oil filter housing and drains it. There's a little O-ring for that as well. So if you're ever working on another Toyota, be mindful. We'll let this guy drain and then we'll replace our filter. All right, a surprising amount of oil on that one. So here's our old filter, just pull him off and slot the new one on. And here's that seal I was talking about. So make sure you replace that seal, just use a little pick. You can usually just get it off with your finger, but I've got the gloves on which make it harder. So get that seal off, replace it, use a bit of clean oil to lubricate that seal, and make sure you give this whole filter housing a bit of a clean. No harm in giving that a little bit of a clean in there too, just to wipe over with a clean rag, nothing more crazy than that. Now, given that this is a sideways filter, you can't easily prime it. So oftentimes with the vertical ones, I would put the filter in and then fill it up with oil as much as it can. With these guys, we're not going to be able to do that. So I will try and get a little bit of oil onto the new filter and into the housing, and we'll just see how much of it comes out. Now I did not take any note of how much oil came out of this. The spec is something like 6.5, I think, and so far for the Diff that was correct with the capacity. So I'm not worried about this because it's always 6 point something. It's 5 point something to 7 litres in 2GRs and 1GRs. It'll be somewhere in the middle of that. So we'll chuck 5 litres in it and then we'll go a bit more cautious as we get to the fill. But for now, we're going to replace this. Then once we're finished here, we will move to the transmission, drain that. Then once we're finished under the car, we'll pop her down and we'll refill the oil up top. Again, not too tight on this guy. You'll feel it snug up. That's tight enough. And then don't forget to pop our retaining clip back on. This guy here just presses back into the hole. Make sure that the tab's facing upwards so that if the filter starts to unwind itself, it'll hit this tab and not go any further. It's going to move this out of the way. All right, job's done. Now, before we move to the transmission, we'll pop these back on. That's about it for under here. Obviously, we've got to pop these back on. These are all just 10mm bolts, nothing special. Again, don't go crazy with tightening them. And then we'll move to the transmission. Alrighty, transmission time now. It doesn't look anything special compared to any other transmission I've seen. So we've got a 14mm drain plug here, and there is a washer on that, which I've got to replace. This guy here, as I mentioned earlier, is a check plug. So normally what you do when you're doing a full drain on these things is drain all the fluid out of it, and then you use this guy, bring the transmission up to temp with a certain amount of fluid in it, and when the fluid level is correct, I think it's like 65 degrees or something, that was for the other car, it could be different for this one, fluid will start coming out of here. We're not doing that this time. Given the car's only done 45,000 Ks, I'm not expecting to even need to do this. This is just my own peace of mind. Up on the side of the gearbox here is a 14mm, again with another big washer, fill plug. So I've cracked him to make sure that we can actually get fluid back in, and I've got a big clear plastic tub with volume on the side of it so that we know how much fluids comes out. So we're going to crack this now, take the fill plug out so that it can breathe, crack this and then see how much fluid comes out, and we'll just basically put that much fluid back in. I've been told on the capacity sheet that there's something like 6.8 litres. Now, as with every other auto, you're not getting that out of the pan. We're probably only going to get 2 or 3 litres, maybe 3.7 or something, as per the other, the Prado that I have. You never get the whole amount. So we'll basically just take out what we can and then replace that exact amount. I do have 8 litres of Toyota automatic transmission fluid, WS, world standard. So we've got more than enough as long as there isn't more than 8 litres in there. Again, you're never getting that much out of the pan. So this is just a suck it and see. So let's drain it, have a look at the volume, put some fluid back in it. Worst case scenario, if the fluid doesn't look good that comes out of it, we can always drive the car for 1,000 Ks, do that process again. You don't have to go and do a full flush every time. You can just do a few cycles like that. I've done it with other cars. Yes, you do end up using a bit more fluid, because obviously you're diluting the clean with the old fluid, but it is another way to get a heap of clean fluid through the box if you don't have the ability to pump it all the way through from the transcooler lines or something. But that said, last time I needed to do a full flush on my Prado, Toyota were able to do that for me. I think it was $400, and that was about what the fluid would have cost. So don't be scared of having these guys serviced, and don't be scared to service them as well. Don't think they're sealed for life or anything silly like that. It's got fluid, it's got drain and fill plugs, it wants to be serviced. So let's crack on. Probably looks worse in the tub if you guys can see it, but the actual fluid itself coming out is not bad at all. So I'm pretty happy that the transmission's in okay condition. There's no flex, chunks, anything like that, as you'd expect from a low case car. But let's just let it keep draining and then we'll refill it. Okay, draining's finished. I've gone ahead and popped the drain plug back in with a fresh crush washer. You can see him just hiding in there. Again, you just tighten these up until the crush washer gives, and then a bit more after that. They don't have to be ridiculously tight. If it does weep, just give it a little bit more. I've given the pan a clean because why not? Now, some of you might ask, what about the filter? Now this, like my Toyota Prado, has a metal screen. It is not a replaceable filter. You can remove it if you want to and clean it. I have never actually found a need to clean it. So I've had my Prado for 200,000 Ks. I have changed the oil, the trans oil in that one every 40 to 50,000 Ks. I tow, I go wood carting. Never seen anything on the screen. Use the proper fluid, service it regularly, and you'll be fine. So for this, we're just going to leave it as it is. Normally you take the pan off and you'd have to replace the gasket, and then you can take the screen out and clean it if you want to. We're not doing that today. Now, I was a bit surprised how much fluid came out of it. We'll duck down here and you can see, can you guys see? That is the 4 litre mark. So I think I said previously that we might need about 3.7 to 4 litres, and it looks like it's about bang on the 4 litre mark. So I will drain that out. Then I will put some old fluid in here just to compare that it is 4 litres. I want to make sure that you're putting the right amount of volume back in. And then we're going to go and get a bottle of our new Toyota fluid and chuck it in the box. So let's go. Now, remember when I said I expected this thing to drain somewhere under 4 litres? I think I called 3.7 or something. Now, when we looked at this just a moment ago, I was calling around about 4 litres, but when I got down and took a closer look, and I'll pop a photo up, it was just below the 4 litre mark. Now, not having used this guy before and not knowing how accurate these marks are, I thought it was worth being sure. So I've emptied this into a Toyota transmission fluid bottle, an old one that I had, and then you can see that there is the 3 litre mark, and the fluid is sitting just above the 3.5 litre mark. So I'm going to call that 3.6, which is not far off my 3.7 litre guess from earlier. I think the capacity of this transmission is listed at about, I think it's 6.8 or something. I'll check the spec sheet. So that's about what I would expect. So always good to follow your instincts and your intuition, experience. There's nothing wrong with checking and verifying. So what I'm going to do now is adjust the level in this bottle and make sure that we've got the right amount of fluid so that we can put the correct amount of fluid back in the box. All right, we've got ourselves set up now. Pro tip, the Tom Thumb lid actually will screw straight onto the Toyota transmission fluid bottle, which is great because we know that we have to leave, roughly 400 ml in this bottle, and we've got our little viewing window on the side. So I'll get pumping and then we will button this up and call that done. Alrighty, so 4 billion pumps later and we're done. So unfortunately the stem of this does not reach all the way to the bottom of the bottle. You get pretty close. So the last bit had to be done with the Tom Thumb. So we'll just get our, feel the neck out. There we go, he's a bit caught. What are you doing in there, mate? There we go. All right, tuck that away. And then the last step remaining, go over there, mate. Last step remaining is to put the fill plug back in, and you can see it's got a washer on it as well. Now that is not a crush washer, that one, so you could reuse that if you wanted to. I've already replaced it, so we'll go ahead and pop that back up in there. That is just a regular 14 mil, nothing special about that one. So I'll do him finger tight, I'll grab a 14 mil, and then we'll call this done. We'll start popping wheels back on. We might do something a bit cheeky there yet, and then we'll get back into the engine bay and we'll fill the engine with oil. Okay, well, it didn't quite come out how I hoped. I thought I'd just do a cheeky one and chuck the Silvia's 18 by 10 zero offset slicks on the Crown, and as you can see, they're pretty fat, so I don't think a 10-inch wide rim is the go for a Crown. Don't look as bad in the back, and the style's okay. Yeah, I just thought, you know, while we're messing around with tyres and wheels, we'd have a quick squiz, but I don't have any wheel nuts that suit the Toyota thread and pitch, but also go inside those rims. So I've gone through all my wheel nuts and no good, so I can't actually put it on the ground and load it up. But anyway, there's just a rough look at what a Crown would look like with some 18 by 10s and slicks. Okay, back in the engine bay now, and we're on the home stretch, so it's time to put some oil back in the car. So oil filler cap is on the passenger side for Australians. Nothing special there. You'll see I've gone ahead and popped a rag in here. I just like to do that for a bit of peace of mind. Get yourself a nice clean funnel, pop him in there. Now, oil. Toyota will spec you a full synthetic oil for these. It does say petrol and diesel. That's kind of the same as my Prado, which is a semi-synthetic, but also for petrol and diesel Prados. And the good news is it's generally chock full of detergent. So if you use this oil, then almost certainly for a petrol car, you're going to end up with a nice clean engine if you continue to change the oil on a regular basis. You can choose between 0 weight 20 or 5 weight 30. I go the 5 weight 30. That's just my preference. I'm not a huge fan of 0 weight oils. They're usually focused more on economy. This car is great on economy, and as I've said, I've had it down into the high fives, but I just prefer a slightly thicker oil. That is my preference. You guys can go away and do your research and make your call. So we're going to chuck this bottle straight in because we know that it's going to take at least 6 point something litres. We'll grab the second bottle, and then we'll get a little bit more careful as we approach that second bottle. So let's hook in. All right, so I reckon we're about there at about 6.5. So I'm going to start the car now, let it fill the oil filter housing, and then I'll stop the car, let it settle, and then we'll check our level again just to be sure. And while the oil is settling, there's one more step that I like to do when I do a service, and I'll show you that now, and it's called Techstream. Okay, final steps now. I did run the car and then let the engine settle and then check the oil again, and the level is spot on, so I'm happy with that. For me, the final step in a Toyota service is to run Techstream and look for DTCs, diagnostic trouble codes. Now, I will put a link in the description where you might be able to find yourself a copy of Techstream version 18 and some instructions on how to get that set up. I am not offering tech support for the software or detailed instructions on how to get it set up. I can tell you that you will need what they call it's a JB25 something cable. So I'll put a text overlay to tell you exactly what the model code of the cable is, but for me, it's just a Tatrix cable. So I've got that from having the 8.6 tuned, so I'm able to use this cable as my Techstream cable. So you just plug into your ODB 2 port down there. You can see him whirring away, and then you fire up Techstream, and this will give you access to all the vehicle's onboard systems. And all I really like to do is just go up here and do a health check, and that will go and check all the ECUs, and it will report back on any DTCs that it finds. So we'll let it go and do that process, and then we'll come back and we'll see if it found anything. Okay, finally all done, and unsurprisingly, no DTCs for this car. So you can see here too that it also shows you things like your tyre pressure sensors. So this is a great bit of software for diagnostics. It also works on the 8.6, which is technically a Subaru, but works with Techstream no problem. Now, if we just jump back to System Select, as well as checking for and clearing DTCs, you can do heaps of other stuff. So you can, calibrate your radar cruise modules, you can check your hybrid battery health and all those sorts of things. There are, ABS functions and helping you bleed the system. There are so many settings that you can play with. We're not going to get into all of those now, but get yourself a copy of this. As I said, take a look in the description, and then have a play. What I am going to do now is show you one of the cool features that I configure on basically every Toyota I've had. So I'm just going to disconnect this and then turn the car off. One sec. Yep, that's off. And then we'll just back up over here. This is one of my favorite Techstream features. So lock the car, hold down the lock button, and you can see the power window goes up all the way to the top. Now, if we unlock the car and hold the button down, all of our windows go down. Now, if you've got a sunroof, yes, that does include the sunroof as well. Another great little feature that you can configure with Techstream, and there is heaps of them. So grab yourself a copy, grab yourself a Techstream cable or one of the much cheaper clones, and go wild. Again, I'm not offering any tech support for it, but this is something that you want to have a play with. Now, let's move into wrap up. So with that last part done, we can now say that our basic service is complete. We've done engine oil and filter, we've done our air filter, cabin filter, transmission fluid, diff fluid, hybrid battery filter, and we've checked for diagnostic trouble codes. Not bad for a basic service. We've probably spent 3 or 4 hours in here today, fiddling around, learning my way around the car, and of course making the video for you guys. So if you're enjoying this content, please let me know. It does take time, and I want to make sure that I'm actually doing it for the right reason. So I want you guys to learn something and get some value out of it. If you are learning something and enjoying it, let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. You got any questions about what we've done today in terms of the service or about S220 series crowns in general, pop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, or jump over onto the Facebook group S220 Crowns. I'm the admin over there, so I will let you in, and then you can ask whatever questions you like of the 500 or something members that we've got and rapidly growing. So with that done, I'm going to get this guy out of here. I'm going to get the Sylvia back into that spot so we can continue with our wide body testing and measuring for wheels and all that kind of cool stuff. And other than that, we're going to wrap up there. So catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.